We definitely, we're good Minyan-wise for sure.
Well, we don't actually really need the Minyan for a while, but it's always nice to start out with one.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I think we'll begin with a song.
We're going to begin with a song.
Yeah.
We're on page 343. This is, I guess, not technically a Passover song, but I think of it as a Passover song because these verses will be chanted for a second time in the ritual year on the Yisker service for Passover, which is a week from Monday. So you'll hear them from the Torah, but this is a lovely song based on Ozi v'Zimrat Yah. 343. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah v'yahi li l'Yeshua. 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 Last time. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah v'yahi li l'Yeshua. Ozi v'Zimrat Yah v'yahi li l'Yeshua.
I absolutely think of that as a Passover song. The translation is Adonai is my strength and might, God is my salvation, redemption, but another way of saying it is God is my strength and song. This is Shabbat Hagadol, the great Shabbat. We welcome you all. I'm Rabbi Ruth Zlotnick. I am so very grateful to Diana Brement, who is co-leading with me today, to Jamie Scher, who is the technical wind beneath our wings, to Lynn and John for being with us at home, and to all of you for being here. Ronnie, you're the best for welcoming us. If you see Jose, please give him a hi, Jose. Oh, he didn't hear us. Oh well. And now I saw there was some, a little bit of schmoozing before services, so that's great because that's a sacred part of the whole service experience. But let's take a moment. We are few enough in this sanctuary. Let's see if you can say Shabbat Shalom and good morning to everyone else in this. And if you don't know someone's name, why don't you introduce yourself? That actually means you might have to get up. There's nothing I like more than when the energy in the room shifts because we actually recognize one another and it brings in a sense of warmth. And, we we have this intimate Minyan service this morning, but Shabbat HaGadol used to be in the temple times. You know, think about how we feel, some of us, about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Like that is the height of our year. And it's a time when we do a cheshbon hanefesh, an inventory of our souls. And we think about, you know, we don't usually use the word sin, but the wrongdoings we've done. This Shabbat in biblical times was all of that. Because for us, this Shabbat before Passover reminds us that, oh, we're going to have the Haggadah out and our Passover plate, and we're going to have our Starim, is how you say it, but our Seders. Some people do one, some people do two. But in the ancient world, actually, that was not what was most important. What was most important was that lamb offering that reminds us of the lamb offering that happened before the Exodus. And rabbis love this Shabbat, Shabbat HaGadol, because after the destruction of the temple, in an effort to remember that Exodus, they would give 3-hour sermons. So we're going to be here a while, folks. No, just kidding. But with that said, I am so grateful because this could not be a more beautiful spring morning here in Seattle. The perfect time to have Shabbat HaGadol, this Shabbat when we are about to enter into our season of discovering liberation and discovering freedom. And we don't do that alone. In Judaism, we do that as a community. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov. It is so good to be in the tent of community. Page 74.
Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Vani berov chastecha avo veitecha eshtachave el heichal koshecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. We're going to do the third verse. Vani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon Elohim berov chastecha eneni bemet yeshecha ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
And we turn now to the top of page 77 and say the first of two prayers, one that thanks God for the gift of our body, and the other that thanks God for the gift of our soul. Bani tefillah tilacha, I in my very being, in my embodied form, in my soulful form, I am my prayer to you. Please join me at the top of page 77. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofe chol basar, umafli la'asot. And then I'll invite you to be in the traditional translation of our prayer for our soul, the bottom of page 78. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, beruach kol basar ish.
It's my pleasure to invite Ken Shayevitz up to lead us in the Sim B'Kol Yom. He'll let us know what version we're doing, and I'm assuming Jamie will put the non-binary version on the screen for those who prefer that.
If anyone wants to do the non-binary one, I think this time I'm going to do the one in the book. Please join in the way that you feel comfortable.
Beginning on page 80.
And we're starting on page 80. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hama'avir shena me'enai u'numa me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Shasani Yisrael, or whatever is your heritage. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Oter Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, Oter Yisrael b'tifara. And now, in Betham tradition, we'll start out with one more, and feel free to fill it in with whatever is on your mind today. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, who gives me a good night's sleep.
Because we did a little teaching on Shabbat HaGadol, maybe we'll just go right into the Pesukei de Zimra. Oh, sure. Okay. So we begin on page 93. Believe it or not, our prayers, can you hear me okay? I think you can. Yep. Our prayers are, have not really begun our morning services yet. These are all just the warm-ups, just to get us in the right place. And our rabbis teach there's no better way to do that than to sing Pesukei de Zimra, some verses of song. Remember, our ancestors sang, Ozi v'zimrat yah, you know, God is my strength and my song through difficult times. And so we continue on page 93.
Actually, 94.
As I said, 94.
No worries. We're going to do Baruch She'amar today. Just these beautiful words of creation and compassion and continuing our collection of blessings for the day. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch oseh v'reshit, Baruch omer v'yoseh, Baruch gozer u'mkayem, Baruch merachem al haaretz, Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch merachem al habriut, Baruch meshalem sachar tov l'riav, Baruch chai la'ad v'kayem la'netzach, Baruch podeh u'matzil, Baruch shemo, Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu. Baruch hu. Baruch hu. And then if we could read together at the bottom in English, starting with songs of praise. We extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Baruch atah Adonai, melech mehulal batish bachot.
And so we're still not quite beginning our morning prayers. We're going to take a little bridge into them with Hatzi Kaddish, our intermezzo prayer. It is on page 106.
Please feel free to join with me or chant responsively. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach yiruteh, ve'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'b'yomechon, u'chayei de kol beit Yisrael, ba'galav yizman kariv, v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach, L'olam l'olmei hamaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach v'yishtabach, Viet par, viet normam, viet nase, viet hadar, viet hale, viet halal, shemedu kudsha, brichu, le'elal min kol berchata vishirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, v'imru
Amen. Please rise in body or spirit. Baruch Hu is on page 108, our call to prayer.
Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Lie, 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 lie. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach le'olam ha'ed.
We remain standing as we say our prayer, thanking God for the creation of light. Yotzer Or is on page 110. Please join me in the Hebrew if you're comfortable. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Yotzer Or uvrei choshek Oseh shalom uvrei et hakol Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha barachamim Uv tuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reshit Marabu ma'asecha Adonai kulam b'chochma asita Mala haaretz kinyanecha tit barach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa arucha sela or chadash al tzion ta'ir v'nizkeh chulanu mehera le'oro baruch atah Adonai Yotzer HaMe'orot. And we continue with Ahava Rabbah on the following page.
Ahava Rabbah Avtanu Adonai Eloheinu Chemla Gedola Vitera Chamalta Aleinu Ba'avur Avoteinu Ve'imotenu Shebatchu Vecha Avotenu Ve'imotenu Vatlamdem Chukei Chaim Kein Techonenu Utlamdenu Hamerachem, Hamerachem, Rachem Aleinu. V'ten b'libeinu lehavin ulhaskil, lishmor lilmud ulelamed, lishmor ve'lasod. Ukayem et kol divrei Talmud Toratecha be'ahava beha'erinenu בתורתך ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך ולא נבוש ולא ניכלם ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו נגילה ונשמחה נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו כי הפועל ישועות אתה ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו לשם הגדול סלע סלע באמת להודות לך ויחדך באהבה ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you, O God, are one. We continue with the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Please be seated. And so we're inviting Ken back up to teach us and lead us in the Viahafta. Page 116.
Just before we start, there's some beautiful rituals associated with the Shema. And the other day, Sarah Eulenberg, Rabbi Sarah Eulenberg, did one when she was saying the Shema. She put her hands out, and it was just, I could just feel it. It was beautiful while she was doing it. She said, "Didn't you know that one?" And I said, "No, I didn't." There's also the idea when you say Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Vaed, a lot of people say that in muted terms in memory of the martyrs. So a lot of times that's what was Rabbi Akiva, I guess it was. Who was it? Who were the Romans took he and his students? There's one that I picked up from my cousin Don at his shul in California, and I do this one a lot for the Via Havta, both for the Shema and the Via Havta. You take the fringes. There are 4 longer fringes on your talit, and you gather them together and wind them. Then you wind them around your finger, and there is an opportunity to hold and press when you say against your heart, to press it against your heart and between your eyes. It kind of, for me, helps you do it me'odecha, with all your being, to really be involved in it. So please join me on page 116 for the Via Havta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol vavcha v'chol nafshecha v'chol mi'odecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivdecha b'veitecha, uvlechtecha v'derech, uv'shokpecha uv'kumecha, ukshartam liod al yadecha, v'hoyu l'totafod b'neinecha, utavtam, Hamazuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tizkaru vasitem et kol mitzvotai vitem kadoshim lelohechem ahani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem lelohim ani Adonai Elohechem Emhet. And kissing your tzitzit is part of the frosting on the cake, so to speak.
Okay. We sing our song of freedom at the sea. Actually, you do it every day if you pray the daily prayers at home. We do it weekly on Shabbat. But it's always nice when it aligns with Passover because it's particularly, can I say it's Pesach? Right, we're on page 122, and we're doing the, I haven't been giving all the composers, but this is Dan Nichols and Mason Cooper's version. Upbeat Mi Chamocha just uses the first verse for singing, and maybe we'll conclude with the English for the last verse. Please feel free to sing along, and if you're inspired to dance, feel free. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot oseh fele, Nora tehilot oseh fele, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. Shir hachadasha shivchu gelim, l'shimcha sfat hayam, Yachad kulam hodu, v'himlechu v'amru, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Back to the chorus. Mi chamocha ba'eri Madonna, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, mi kamocha ba'eli Madonna, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, osef teheleh, Nora tehilot, osef teheleh, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed, Adonai imloch leolam va'ed. And let's do the last verse together in English and the blessing. Rock of Israel, rise in support of Israel and redeem Judah and Israel as you promised. Our Redeemer, Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Blessed are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. And we turn now to the central prayers of our morning service. They are so central, they're just called tefillah, prayer, but we also call them Amidah. And we're on page 124. We'll be doing the even pages communally to start and then silently to conclude. I'll let you know when we get to that part. When you get to the end of your silent prayer, if I forget to say this the next time around, on page 142, when you're finished, you may be seated. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit. Page 124. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot, V'Imahot, Umevi Gila Livnei V'Nehem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Hagibor leolam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atarav lehoshia, Mashiv haruach umorir hagashem, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Zomech noflim verofech cholim, Umatir asurim, Umayem nato lishene afar, Michamocha ba'al gevurot, Umidom elach, Melech memit umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'neiman atah lahachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. 130. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, Keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, Kakatuv al yanadinecha, V'kara zel zeh ve'amor, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Meloch haaretz, Kevodo, Adir, Adirenu Adonai, Yoshienu vehu yashmienu berachamav lenei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Zion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador Netzachim kedushat chanakdish. Veshivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam vaed. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue on page 134 with Kedushat Hayom. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu retzei v'imnuchatenu kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tein chelkenu b'toratecha sabenu metuvecha v'samchenu b'shuatecha v'taher libeinu lehovdecha b'emet v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha v'yanuchu v'Yisrael mekadshei shemecha Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. We continue silently through page 142. You might want to use the words in the prayer book or pray the words of your heart or merely meditate on the silence of your soul. When you're finished, please be seated. On 139, I read, and you don't have to turn there, we're going to sing on page 142, but this line jumped out at me. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. 142, Yiyu L'Ratson, in the middle of the page. Yiyu L'Ratson, Imrefi, Imrefi, V'hegyon libi lefanecha. Yiyu L'Ratson, Imrefi, Imrefi, V'hegyon libi lefanecha. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri v'gali. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri v'gali. Yiyu L'Ratson, Imrefi, Imrefi, V'hegyon libi lefanecha. Yiyu L'Ratson, Imrefi, Imrefi, V'hegyon libi lefanecha. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Thank you.
So we turn now to our service for reading Torah. It begins on page 244. I'm grateful to Sarah, who will be bringing Torah to our community. Sarah, this time, because you're going to bring Haftarah. Awesome. Three Sarahs. Do I hear a fourth? No. Oh, that's not what we're doing today. And I'm very grateful to Gary Crane for opening the Ark. And so I'll invite the two of you to join me as we continue. It looks like it's going to be a combination of choir and...
Yes, we're getting a little choir, grandeur of the choir.
For Shabbat Hagadol, for the great Shabbat, it's appropriate. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
En kamocha v'Elohim Adonai. Ein keva'asecha. Malchutcha malchut kol olamim u'memshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai.
Adonai
page 248. Once again, we recite these words of attention and intention. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu vehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu vehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, haolam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut hasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut hasadim. Just so you know, when the Torah is up, we are up in body or spirit. When the Torah sits down, we get to sit down too.
I haven't thought about it as sort of the resting of the Torah, but it's true. And may that bring rest to us. So this week's Torah, you have not heard at all about this week's Torah portion because it is Mitzorah, Parshat Mitzorah, one of two Torah portions that have to do with icky oogie stuff. But I will say I have one teeny tiny little teaching. I'll be reading from the first verses of Parshat Mitzorah. Sa'arat was some kind of disease that was on skin. It could be found on houses. It was in all sorts of places. And I'll be reading the first 4 verses from Leviticus chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. If you have the classic Plout, that's on page 841. If you have the new Plout, that's on page 752. And here's the deal. I'm going to be describing the purification, at least the tools for purification that happens when someone who is, in the Middle Ages, someone mistranslated it as leprosy, so we think about it as leprosy. But the ooey gooey stuff of Sa'arat, someone is purified from it, someone has healed from this illness, and we're going to read about the different tools of it. And here is, it ends with a piece of cedar wood and a stalk of hyssop, and Ibn Ezra, who was a 12th century commentator, actually a very good friend of Judah Halevi, and wrote beautiful poetry in Judean Arabic. But he talks about that hyssop was very important, not only because it helped here, but because it is also was used in what he called the Egyptian Passover. So that's my connection between Mitzorah and Passover. The long stalk was used to paint the blood on the lintels in the Passover story and is used to help purify the person with Sa'arat. Again, stick that in your pipe and smoke it, I guess. The verses are chapter 14, verses 1 through 4. We're so grateful to Shelley. I will be reading and getting a little help from Everett Fox in the translation. And so we are calling Shelley up. And Shelley, I want to acknowledge with Shilashim behind you, may Torah continue to be a source of wisdom and support and strength. Ozi v'zimrat Yah.
Ta'amud Sipora Bati. Yerach Miel V'Golda Aliyah Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim. V'natan Lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe Lemor, and God spoke to Moses, saying, Zot tihiyeh Torat hamitzora bayom tohorato. This is the teaching of the person beset with sa'arat on the day of their purification. V'huva el hakohen, they will be brought to the priest. The Yatsa HaKohen El Mechutz Lamachane, and the priest will go out from the outside of the camp. The Ra'a HaKohen, and the priest will look. The Hine, oh my goodness, behold. Nirpa Nega Hatsa'arat Min Hatsarua. There is a healing at the place where the person with Sa'arat was afflicted with Sa'arat. V'tziva HaKohen, and the priest will command, v'lekach lamitaher shtei tziporim, that the one who is to be purified will take 2 birds, chayot taharot, living and pure, the eitz erez, and cedar wood, ushnei to la'at, and the scarlet of the worm, according to Fox, the azov, and hyssop, the very same that's used in the Passover Exodus.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And Yasher Koach. And now we will once again cover our Torah out of respect for the Torah, but recognizing with the Torah in our midst that it is a particularly blessed time, an auspicious time to share prayers and blessings. So if there is someone who that you would like to name right now who is in your life in need of healing, I invite you to do so. And if you're watching online, participating online, we invite you to put it in the chat. For everyone we've named out loud and anyone we hold in our hearts, and recognizing that there are so many in war-torn places across this globe, we continue with our Mishaberach Lecholim, our prayer for healing.
This is the Taubman version, and I think Jamie has a slide for us. Doesn't exactly correspond to the words on page 253, so in case you want to use these. Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Yivarech V'yirapeh et hacholim Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yivarech V'yirapeh et hacholim El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah El Narifan Allah Sheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim Hu Yivarech v'Yirapeh et HaCholim.
May each one know a full and speedy healing of body and soul. Amen. The time has come to lift and dress Torah. It's an honor to invite forward David, welcome back, and Ben, welcome from the traffic snarl. We'll invite you to please rise in body or spirit.
On the bottom of page 252. Vezot HaTorah Asher Sam Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael El Pi Adonai La'ad Moshe Torah, 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 Torah Nitzivu lanu Moshe Torah, 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 Siva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Siva lanu Moshe. Torah, 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 Siva lanu Moshe.
An honor to invite to come and share Haftarah, the additional readings of sacred literature on this this Shabbat. And Sarah's going to be reading from Malachi chapter 3, verses 16 to 24. And this is actually a very special reading, again, for Shabbat HaGadol. And is my mic not on? Yeah, okay. Did you all hear me okay for the most part? That's great. Oh, so just saying, this is a very hi everyone online, very special Haftarah portion. It's Malachi chapter 3, verses 16 through 24. If you have the classic plout, that's on page 1655, and it'll go to the next page. If you have the new plout commentary, it's on page 1460. But what makes this the special Shabbat HaGadol is you'll notice at the very end of the portion, it talks about the arrival of Elijah, which is, of course, we leave the door open in the hope that we can live in the age of harmony that we know as the Messianic age.
Great. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tzur kol ha'alamim. Wait, I think v'kol hayom. That's not the words I'm reading here. Let me start over. Sure. Yeah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar. I'm sorry. Bachar b'mi'im tovim v'ratza b'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'invi'eh ha'emet v'tzedek. Thank you, everybody. Oh, thanks. So this is Malachi verse 16. In this vein, have those who revere the Lord been talking to one another? The Lord has heard it and noted it, and a scroll of remembrance has been written at his behest concerning those who revere the Lord and esteem his name. And on the day that I am preparing, said the Lord of hosts, they shall be my treasured possession. I will be tender toward them, as a man is tender toward a son who ministers to him. And you shall come to see the difference between the righteous and the wicked, between him who has served the Lord and him who has not served him. For lo, that day is at hand, burning like an oven. All the arrogant and all the doers of evil shall be straw. And the day that is coming, said the Lord of hosts, shall burn them to ashes, and leave of them neither stalk nor boughs. But for you who revere my name, a son of victory shall rise to bring healing. You shall go forth and stamp like stall-fed calves. And you shall trample the wicked to a pulp, for they shall be dust beneath your feet on the day that I am preparing, said the Lord of hosts. Be mindful of the teaching of my servant Moses, whom I charged at Horeb with laws and rules for all Israel. Lo, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before the coming of the awesome, fearful day of the Lord. He shall reconcile fathers with sons, and sons with their fathers, so that when I come, I do not strike the whole land with utter destruction. Lo, I will send the prophet Elijah to you before the coming of the awesome, fearful day of the Lord. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol haolamim tzadik b'chol hadorot ha'el ha'ne'eman ha'omer ve'oseh ha'medaber u'mekayem shechol devarav emet v'tzedek al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al hanvi'im ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu likdusha ve'limnucha lechavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'mevarchim otach Yitbarach Shimcha befi chol hai tamid leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Kol hakavod, Asher Koach. It's a good time to remind everyone that it's not a performance. If you are engaged in prayer leading, you're taking on an honor. Thank you, Sarah, of leading the congregation. And I have certainly had plenty of times where people have called out to me from the congregation when I've made a mistake or forgotten something, and that's perfectly fine.
It's actually a really beautiful Talmudic teaching that says that the Shlichei Tzibor, the people who are leading for the community, should make mistakes so that everyone understands. So, so thank you for being our Talmudic sage. And we're going to return the Torah to the Ark. I invite you to rise in body or spirit. The blessing is on page 256.
Chaim chila mahazikim bavatomchecha meushar. It's Chaim chila mahazikim bavatomchecha meushar. Shalom, 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 shalom. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it. All of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to them that hold fast to it. All of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. And you may be seated. Yasher Koach.
I want to say I'm so grateful to Ben. Actually, I have several teachings I'm doing. I think I'm doing something like 6 teachings in 5 days. And I was joking with Diana that I feel a little bit like a rabbinic jukebox, you know, put a coin in me and a little Jewish teaching will come out. But you know, I don't have that much to say. So I am so grateful to Ben, who reached out to Diana, who let me know that you'd like a brush-her-up course, a tutorial on the counting of the Omer. I feel like this Passover, I've been sharing like the perhaps the less well-known or less familiar rituals. Last night we talked about the bidikat chametz, the looking for the chametz, the leavened pieces. And the one thing I suggested, and I promise you I will be doing this, is if you have not, like just clean your kitchen this weekend and that'll feel like a spiritual practice for Passover. So that was last night. So today, in honor of Ben, we are going to talk about the strange ritual, which actually, once I did a deeper dive in the traditional commentary, I realized this is one thing, you know, people think there's the Jewish tradition as it is, and it has been handed down unchanged, door from generation to generation. This is one tradition, because it was a little loosey-goosey, I'll explain why in just a moment, that has had actually lots of different ways the Jewish communities around the globe and through time have experienced it. But in general, I'll share with you a little bit about it. The interesting thing is you start counting the Omer on the second night of Passover. So the first night will be this Monday. And you don't do it for the first day, the tradition teaches, because we're like in the glow of being freed from Egypt. That's enough, Dayenu, to coin a phrase. And so then on the second night, we count it, and it is because the counting of the Omer connects us from Passover, Pesach, to Shavuot. Shavuot is the only biblically ordained holiday that does not have a specific date connected to it, because it's connected to the counting. So as you can see here, we are told in Leviticus, there's also a second giving of this commandment in Deuteronomy. Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, when you enter the land that I am giving you and you harvest its harvest, you are to bring the premier sheaf of your harvest to the priest. He is to elevate the sheaf before the presence of God for acceptance for you. On the morrow of the Sabbath, the priest is to elevate it. You are to make a sacrifice, and you are to number for yourselves from the morrow of the Sabbath. From that day, you bring the elevated sheaf. 7 Sabbaths of days, whole weeks are they to be, until the morrow of the seventh. Boy, I picked the fox. Sorry. Until the morrow of the 7th day, to number 50 days, then you are to bring near a grain gift of new crops to me. Basic idea. 7 weeks of 7 days, we count every single day from the second night of Passover, and when we get to the 50th day, that's how we know we are at Mount Sinai and at Shavuot. And so there are certain traditions that have been handed down that you count, so the counting of the Omer, sheaf by sheaf, day by day. Traditionally, you say the blessing over the Omer, and there are tons of information. I know that for Diana, her favorite information about, there are like Omer counters on the web is the Homer Simpson, and you know, you get to it and it says, don't. No. But you count, you stand at night, you say the blessing, and you count by weeks and days. So in the first week, you say, this is the first day of the counting of the Omer, this is the second day. But then after you get through the first week, then you count by weeks and days. So on the 8th day, for instance, you would say, this is 1 week plus 1 day of counting the Omer. And there are lots of different ways to do the counting of the Omer. As I mentioned, there are Omer counters on the web. I happen, for the last couple of years, I've been using I have a couple of different books. If you're interested, I can share with you. Rabbi Naomi Levy has a beautiful way to help move through those 7 weeks. And she uses verses of Psalms to get you there, which is really beautiful. I thought I'd share with you, but it can get confusing. What day is it, day by day? And this is an Omer counter. I'll pass it around. And you just switch it up, and it lets you know what day. And then at the end of the 49 days, you roll it all the way back up. And it's very, I can say that it's very helpful. So we're going to do a little show and tell. Sorry to you folks at home that you won't be able to lay your hands on the Omer counter. So that's the basic ritual. That's the tutorial. You know, we do it at night. We stand up. There's a blessing. There's transliteration and translation on the web. But you may be asking, why do we do this? What is the purpose? And in many ways, we have to remember that this is the season of our freedom, right? This is the season that we've gone from a dark, constricted place to the spaciousness of the wilderness. But we weren't just set forth to be freed. We were set forth to be freed so we could receive the covenant, the Brit and Torah. Now, there's a strange feeling in this time, and this is the part that I found to be the most varied. These 7 weeks are considered a time of mourning. Ken mentioned Rabbi Akiva, who had a fascinating life, very horrible death, and lots of loss in his life. Rabbi Akiva wanted to marry a woman, but he wasn't learned in Torah. He went away for 12 years and became such a great Torah scholar that he amassed students. And in fact, he amassed 12,000 pairs of students. As some of you may be familiar, in Judaism, when you study in a pair, in a chavruta with another person. 12,000 of those pairs, 24,000 people, died in the period between Passover and Shavuot, we're told in the Talmud. We're told it wasn't just perchance, but because they were dishonoring one another. They weren't fully honoring their chavruta. This was at a time when God was a rewarding and punishing God, obviously. And so there is a sense that this time period is supposed to be a time of mourning, but that wasn't really, it wasn't really practiced with vigor until after the Crusades. When the Crusades happened in the Middle Ages, it became really helpful. We can only imagine what our ancestors needed in terms of how to articulate the grief and the sorrow and the sense of trauma of enduring the Crusades. So to have the spiritual practice one day after the next day, after the next day, after the next day, just hoping to get to Sinai. But we do also have others in our tradition, especially from parts that are not European-centric, that really distance themselves from the sense of mourning. It doesn't really make that much sense. And so the idea of counting from Passover to Shavuot is biblically instructed, as we just saw. It is something that we do day by day, and it's a spiritual practice. But because we've been doing this a long time, and there's been a lot that has gone on, not only in medieval times did the counting of the Omer was it rediscovered in some ways to help with a spiritual need of the community. The same was true for the folks who were exiled from Spain in the 15th and 16th centuries. They settled in northern Israel in Sfat. They studied with the great mystical teacher Isaac Luria, known as Ha'ari, and it was Lurianic mystics who created the idea. So if you're at all confused now, I'm just warning you, you're going to get even more confused in just a moment, okay? Jewish mysticism suggests that God, the whole idea of mysticism, whatever faith tradition you're a part of, is to become one with God, to understand the nature, the essence of the one who brought us all into being. I once had a friend in grad school who, before I went to rabbinical school, who was getting his PhD in comparative religion, studying mysticism, but he opted not to choose Judaism because he said it was way too confusing for him, which I think makes a lot of sense. If we could go to the next slide. And this is why. Thank you for making that bigger. And I'm just going to open up mine so I can see it here. Thank you. So what this is, the mystics who lived in Israel, who survived the Inquisition, who survived exile, believed that God has, that the way the world was created was God made a choice to constrict God's self, make space, and that there were emanations of God that are known now that are known as the 10 Sefirot. So you hear the similar word. In counting the Omer, we say the Sefirat HaOmer, and God's emanations, according to mysticism, are the Sefirot. And that's because it's really interesting, this word for counting is also a word that has at its root sefer, book, text, sipor, story. And so what the mystics in Sfat realized is that we could, in some ways, connect to the divine. And this is how you can see at the top of this is considered the Sephirotic map. Some mystics suggest that it looks like a human body with the head at the top and the two sides. It is, thank you very much. It is very much about different aspects of God that come to be. The top three we're not going to talk about. The very top one that's called Keter, which means crown, is also known as Ein Sof. That is the hidden most mystery of God. There is no end. We can't really understand God. But if we focus on all of these other different aspects of God, emanations of God in the world, for instance, we begin with Chesed, which is loving kindness, and then we move to Gevurah, which is considered strength, but also boundaries. If Chesed is flowing, if loving kindness is flowing, then the next week we look at the ways that we are rigorous in keeping bounded, and so on and so forth. The seven aspects of God are loving kindness, might, beauty, grandeur, gratitude, having a foundation, and then Shekhinah or Malchut, which is the immanent presence of God in our lives. So what these crazy mystics did in the north of Israel in the 16th century is to say, not only do we, on the second night of Passover, count, standing up every single day, step by step by step by step for 49 days until we get to the 50th day of Shavuot, which is, of course, when we celebrate being at Mount Sinai. Every single week helps us access a different part of God's emanation in the world. And every single day has a different aspect of God. So now, if this isn't confusing enough, can we go to the next slide, please? I love this slide. So what this slide shows you is how every single day you have to read the slide, both across and down. So, the first day of counting the Omer will be Tuesday night. Of course, Jewish days begin at night because, no, we all know why. Why do Jewish days begin at night? Right. From the day of creation, I heard it from a couple of different things. It was what we're told in the book of Genesis. There was nighttime and there was daytime on day one. And so obviously that means that days begin at night, which in some ways does make sense if you think about your life. When, we come out of the dark womb into the world. So makes some sense. Anyway, so what this does is this is a map of the 49 days to Shavuot, and so the first week, and what some traditions have done. Some of you know I've been diving deep lately in Musar, which is a character development, a spiritual practice. From Judaism. It's thousands of years old, but really took root in the 19th century. And so the first week, your focus is on loving kindness. How does chesed manifest itself within me, towards myself, towards others, towards God, towards creation? And each day of that week, you look at a slightly different part of it. So the first day is called chesed, the chesed of chesed. And the second day is givra in chesed. Like, how do we have to bound our loving kindness, and so on and so forth. So every single day has a different character in this. Okay, so why do we do this? So is this enough of a tutorial? Thank you. So the 33rd day, which is known as Lag BaOmer, the 33rd day is the day for those communities, mostly the Eurocentric ones, who do believe that this is a time of deep mourning. And so what that means is men don't get haircuts. You're not supposed to go to lively parties or listen to lively music. You're supposed to be a little more restrained. But on the 33rd day, all that goes, and you are allowed to get your hair cut, you're allowed to get married, and so on and so forth. And so it's kind of like a really joyous day in the land of Israel as well. But as I say, I was surprised to learn how much some communities do not go deep into the mourning aspect. But you may be asking yourself, why? Why would we do this? So we're counting sheaves of wheat from an agricultural holiday that is thousands of years old, and then we put this strange mystical overlay on it. Why do we do this? We come out of Egypt. We get out. And how do we know who we really are if we're not preparing ourselves for the incredible experience, God-infused experience of being on Mount Sinai, receiving Torah, and being part of a brit that transforms how we understand ourselves? And so a contemporary Musar master, who's known as the Nitivot Shalom, which means the paths of peace. Again, Musar is this idea of looking within at different aspects of godliness within us and how we can develop our character. The Nitivot Shalom was Shalom Noach Berezovsky, who was born in Belarus and was part of the Slonim Hasidic sect. He happened to move in 1933 to what was then British Mandate Palestine, and therefore survived. But most of the people, most of his faction of Hasidism did not survive. And he ends up writing this book called Paths of Peace, Nitivot Shalom, which is considered by some to be a modern classic in Musar. And if you'll do the final slide, please. What the Nitivot Shalom suggests is that the first day of Pesach, and this is a very mystical idea, we are co-partners with God in creating the reality that we live in. And so the first day of Pesach is, and this is Aramaic, itaruta de leila, an arousal from above. So it comes from God's innermost part, just like the Holy Shabbat, whatever. When the desire of the Holy One of Blessing delivered Israel from Mitzrayim, it was as if by quantum leap, which lit them up with great awe-filled light, which is the first day of Pesach. So the reason why we don't start counting on the first night of Passover is because we are in awe that we made it out of Mitzrayim, out of the dark and narrow place. And that came totally, according to our tradition, out of God's love for us and God's love for all those who are vulnerable and oppressed. But after the first day, that great light disappears, and then the counting of the Omer begins. So we begin on the second day, because it is by this means that the people of Israel need to light up the Holy One of Blessing. So we want to get to Sinai. We have to, God got us out. Now we have to let God know we're ready. We're ready for Sinai. And arrive at Shavuot by means of their own effort. In other words, one arrives at the holy day of Shavuot by the strength of the itaruta de latata, an arousal from below, cultivated during the days of the Omer as we're on this spiritual search, returning to the same level of enlightenment and understanding as was given to them during the first day of Pesach by an arousal from above. Thank you, Jamie. What this is saying is that freedom isn't free. That to be really get out from underneath the constriction that enslaves us, we need to work on ourselves hour by hour, day by day, week by week, and only then will we be ready and prepared to receive that sense of connection to something much greater than ourselves, and to receive those sacred obligations that allow us to act in this world, to bring repair to this world. And only then will we have that sense of brit, that sense of purpose that gives us the hope to continue on and bring redemption to this world. So that is why, Ben, we count the Omer. And thank you for asking. And again, if you'd like any, there are lots of wonderful books and guides and whatnot. The Institute for Jewish Spirituality has a couple of Omer classes. So I invite you to dig deep into some of these more obscure rituals in our tradition as we continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach on page 282.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'tet gedula li'yotzer breshit, shehu notei shamayim v'yosed aretz, u'moshav yakaro b'shamayim mimal, u'shchinatu zo b'govhei memorim, hu Eloheinu einod, va'anachnu korim, umishtahavim umodim, lifnei melech machei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu. 287, v'ne'emar, v'haya Adonai, l'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo Echad.
Please be seated. I love this poem by Yehuda Amichai, and so perfect for this Shabbat Hagadol, the Shabbat before Passover. And what is my lifespan? I'm like a person gone out of Egypt. The Red Sea parts, I cross on dry land. 2 walls of water on my right and on my left. Pharaoh's army and his horsemen behind me. Before me the desert, perhaps the promised land too. That is my lifespan. This week, we're remembering Lou Atlas, who is a member of our community for just a short while before he and his wife Vivian moved to California to be closer to family. He died this week, and so we are in the period of Shiva for him. He is the father of Josh and Carrie, grandfather of Fern, Ruby, Sabine, and brother of Alan. We're also in the period of Shilashim, the month when we are remembering Murray Ox, father of Julie Black and grandfather to Aaron and Michael. And we are remembering Charles Rosenberg, who died in the last month, brother of Morris, brother-in-law of Gail. At this time, we're also remembering these loved ones whose yard site falls at this time: Iselin Oster, Carol Becker, Leonard Beckerman, Kayla Bender, Benson, Louis Berman, Marshall Rement, Marisa Marisaya Hornaya, Paul Crane, Genya Fisher Zach, Samuel Garber, Alan Sidney Ginsberg, Amber Grimm, Joseph Grobman, Helen Gervich, Herbert Harris, Joe Harris, Alice Jersick, Stanley Kaplan, Louis Katz, Sophie Kaufman, Darlene Keene, Sydney Kalin, Lottie Klugman, Alan Lowen, Jan Lowen, Lawrence Margolin, Siri Mayo, Helen Mervis, Lainey Mervis, Alan Moog, Leo Parness, Jacob Peltz, Julius Peltz, William Peltz, Loretta Rapport, Jerome Richard, Judith Ripkin, James Robertson, Edith Rosenkrantz, Ronald Rourke, Joseph Sachs, Susan Settle, Devorah Sharp Karp, Louis Shikiar, Joseph Shore, Jane Schur, Rose Simon, Nate Simon, Ernest Singer, Arun Suri, Robert Spiegler, Naomi Stone, Ben Thal, Julia Thies, Libby Wolf, Joseph, Danny Zeslowski. I also invite you now to share any names that you'd like to include in this time of mourning, and if you choose to, let us know your relationship with them. If you have lost a loved one in the last week or month, I invite you to please rise. Or in the last year, I invite you to please rise. Or if you're here remembering a yard site, to please rise. And then as one community, let's stand in solidarity with the mourners among us as we say the Mourners Kaddish, 194. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, Bialma divra chirute v'amlik malchute, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kari v'yimru, Amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarak le'olam almei almaya, yit barak v'yishtabak v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh, v'yit hadar v'yit taleb v'yit talal, shmei dekudusha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran bi'alma v'yimru, Amen. Hey shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, Amen. Yoshvei tevel, all who dwell on earth, Zikronam livracha, may their memories forever be a blessing. Please be seated. Do you want to? Sure. Yeah. Diana's reminding me that we do want to make sure that we acknowledge that this land that we're standing on is the land of the coastal Salish people, particularly of the Duwamish tribe. And as Jews, we acknowledge that not just through our words, but through study and through tzedakah. So we continue to give to the Indians of All Tribes Foundation, as well as through acts of kindness.
So we're going to have a closing song and then Kiddush and Motzi. This is a song I can never get enough of during Passover. 361, Avadim Hayinu. Avadim Hayinu, Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Avadim Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin. Avadim Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Again, Avadim Hayinu, Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. Avadim Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin. Avadim Hayinu, Ata b'nei chorin, b'nei chorin. We were slaves, but now we are free people. Woo-hoo. And 301, I think, for the blessing over the wine. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen.
L'chaim. And in just a moment, we're going to do the blessing over challah. Please bring your prayer books back. Thank you to Ronnie for being the shamash with the mostish. Thank you to Jamie. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you,
to
Rabbi.
everyone online. We're so grateful you're here.
Goodbye.
And can we do this in Beth Am style, which is to just recognize that we are interconnected through blessing and love as we do the Hamotzi. I'll just lift it up nice high. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avot. And who would like to make this kosher? Please join us for our lunch afterwards.
And
How
if
about
someone
you,
could
Alana?
bring that into the
Sure.
into the social hall also.
That would be great.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, that